Hi, welcome back. Again, my name is Dan DeSanto. I'm your liaison librarian. And in this session, we'll talk about how to effectively search a database in order to find articles. And I believe you're expected to find empirical research primarily. So we'll talk about empirical studies in this module and how to search. We'll talk about the mechanics of searching. And then we'll talk about strategies for searching and revising your search. And finally, we'll talk about how to locate an article once you've identified it as something you want. So we'll start by looking in Articles and More and going down to psychology. We'll start with a database called PsycInfo because it's very easy to find empirical studies in PsycInfo. There's some very good ways to limit your searches to only find empirical studies and limit to a certain age group. So I like PsycInfo. I think it'll be good for this demonstration. Know that databases essentially are like cars in that although some databases look very different or have different bells and whistles, all databases will have the same parts. As every car has tires and a steering wheel, every database will have searchable fields and ways to limit. So while the make and model may be different, I hope to give you some skills today about how to use the parts that will be similar to every database, and we'll use PsycInfo as our example. So when we're searching PsycInfo, or any database for that matter, what we're really doing is searching across thousands of different journals, and within those journals, millions of different articles. So the searching is wildly powerful. But one thing I will say is that because the searching is so powerful in these databases, it also means you have to do a lot of weeding out and looking through things that may not be pertinent to your search. So I'm going to cast a very broad net here, and I'm going to search for postpartum depression. So let's say we were researching a question, or we had a research question like, what are the most effective ways in which to deal with postpartum depression? So if we're using that as our research topic, we could start by doing a very broad search like this and cast a very wide net. This is a fairly common term, so we're going to get a lot of results with this. I'm going to just search in this way, and this is a keyword search, so again, it's as broad as they come. So I'll do this search, and you can see that we get 113 results. So I'm going to need to modify that search to get a little more specific. We're talking about effective ways in which to deal with postpartum depression, so we might add a search term like treatment and see how that limits us. So we're down to 35. That's a decent number of results. If we take a scroll through, see what types of things we're coming up with. The short and long-term effect of psychological treatment of postpartum depression. Comparative evaluation of community treatments for postpartum depression. So we're pretty on point here too. This was a pretty effective search. And we did need to narrow down with another search term. Similar to the last module where I showed you and or searches, again, this is exactly the same as the catalog in that sense, and that there's and, or, and not. To get more specific, you might also consider using these limiting boxes here on the right-hand side of the page. You can limit to finding a term within the abstract that's shown on the record, the abstract of the article. You can limit to find an author of an article. You can only search a term within the title of an article. You can search for a specific publication if you know the title of the journal that you're searching for. Or much the same way that when we talked in the catalog about subjects, that same sort of indexing also applies to databases in that an indexer has gone in and taken a look at a article and said that that article is about X, Y, and Z subject terms, and you can search those subject terms specifically, much the same way that we were searching subject headings in the catalog. So we have subject terms here as well. So these boxes can be very helpful limiters to your search. So in addition to those drop-down boxes, there are other ways to limit that can be very powerful and very helpful to the way that you search. One of the things I like about PsycInfo is that it gives you a lot of different ways to limit your search. So let's start with something very broad, like physical abuse. And I will leave that as a keyword search. I won't use any of these drop-down limits. I won't change it to subject heading. I'll just leave it as a keyword. I will click peer reviewed. And if I could take just a moment, I'll talk about peer review and the peer review process. This little box pops up and tells you a little bit about peer review, but I'll explain it a little further. If you've been asked to use peer review and you don't understand what it means or kind of think you have an idea of what it means, I'll give you a little go through very quickly. Essentially, the peer review process is the process by which a author, someone who is an expert in the field, will write a study, write an article, and they will send that article to a board of reviewers for a specific journal. So they will submit their article to that journal. The board of reviewers are also experts in the field. They have their PhDs, they are well established. They serve as reviewers for that journal. The article will be sent out to generally multiple reviewers. Those reviewers will read the article and say one of three things. The first thing they might say is, we like this article, we think it's great as is, no revisions necessary, we want to publish this, it's great work, we're going to publish it. The second thing they might say is, no, we think this work is of little value, it's flawed, we would never publish this, no. But more commonly, the thing that they might say is the third option, which is please revise and resubmit, meaning that they would read the article and offer suggestions. So suggestions for revising the research or working on the writing. They would offer a round of revisions, send it back to the person who had submitted. That person would essentially make those revisions and resubmit, and it will go through that process again, and they may offer another round of suggestions or another round of revisions, and that process may go back and forth a few times. So that's a general idea of peer review in a nutshell. Something goes through that process until it's ready to be published, and that is really the key, that a board of reviewers who are experts within the discipline say that this is good research and it's ready to be published and shared with the rest of the discipline. That's why your professors may ask you for only peer-reviewed items. So PsycInfo makes it really easy to identify peer-reviewed items. If you do click here, the articles that you get will be from journals that have a peer review element, that have editors who peer review the journals. And there's a way to limit to date if you're looking for only current material. PsycInfo is nice because it lets you have some great flexibility in how you limit by date. What I really, really, really like about PsycInfo, though, is that it lets you limit by methodology. And for you, this is huge in this class because you're looking for empirical research. You can limit by empirical study, and that is fantastic. Not only can you limit by methodology and empirical study, you can see that there are other methodologies, experimental replication, focus group, interview, lit review, lots of different ways. But in addition to methodology, you can limit by age group, which again is very helpful, especially if your project is dealing only with school-age children or adolescents. For us, let's limit to adolescents. So now we're looking for peer-reviewed material, not just peer-reviewed material, but peer-reviewed empirical studies with an adolescent age group about physical abuse. So it's a fairly sophisticated search we're running here. And still, there are a huge number of results. So all of these articles will be empirical studies that have gone through the peer review process. childhood physical abuse, internalized homophobia, and experimental avoidance among lesbians and gay men, physical abuse in low-income women in Aleppo, Syria. All of these would be empirical studies. So PsycInfo is very nice in that way, and that's one of the reasons I like it, because it lets you limit in so many different ways, and that can be so helpful. I would also like you to know that you don't have to necessarily limit your search before you run the search. If we take these limits off, peer review, and empirical study, and adolescents, you can take those limits off, run the search, and you can add a limit after you've searched too. So let's go to methodology, and you can see empirical studies, the first thing that pops up. We can apply that limit. We go from 7,000 down to 5,000, and we'll do age group and add our adolescent limit back in. We're at 5,000, and we're down to 1,000 now. So you can limit after the search too, which again is very nice. There's pre-search limiting and post-search limiting. In the last sort of mechanical thing I want to show you, these are very much the mechanics of a database. So these are the steering wheels and blinkers and gas pedals of our databases. The last thing I want to show you is, you'll notice that our database is called PsycInfo, but it's vended to us by a company called ProQuest. You can actually search ProQuest databases across multiple databases. So if you look up in the very left-hand corner, you can see it says we're searching one database. And if we click on that, it'll tell us that we're searching PsycInfo. If you wanted to search another database, say an education database, ERIC, along with PsycInfo, you can update. Now we're searching two databases, but you lose all of those nice features of PsycInfo. Because ERIC doesn't have those features, basically the search gets dumbed down to the lowest common denominator. So ERIC doesn't have those because it's an education database and it's for a different discipline. It doesn't need methodology and age limits. So it provides you a broader search, but it provides you a less specific search, or it doesn't provide you the ways in which to limit. If something is not a ProQuest database, we have EBSCO, Gale, we have lots of different vendors. Those you couldn't search across, you'd need to search those individually. But many of our social sciences databases are vended to us by ProQuest. So I will go back and take ERIC off, and you'll see that we get all of those nice features back. And I'll return to the PsycInfo general search screen. So we've gone over the nuts and bolts of how to search a database, the limiters, the things that are common from database to database, and the sort of mechanics of searching. I'd like to talk a little bit more about the practice of searching, or the ways in which you can improve your search on your own by improving your search strategy. And I'll show you what I mean by improving your search strategy. Basically what I'm talking about is being persistent in your search. And I'd like to demonstrate what I mean by that persistence. I'm going to do a search for, I believe what we initially searched for, postpartum depression and treatment. Again, putting my phrase search in quotations and not limiting. I'm going to just do a keyword search. I'm not limiting at all right now. This should bring up the same result set that we had before, 34 results. And what I mean when I say persistence is that realization that searching is an iterative process, that you're constantly learning, and that the results that you get will inform your next search. So you're constantly revising your search and finding new ways to search, finding more specific ways to search from the information that you're getting in your current search. So as an example here, we'll just look at this first result. Again, our search was postpartum depression and treatment. And our first result here, controlled trial of the short and long-term effect of psychological treatment of postpartum depression, impact on maternal mood. So we're just going to go in here and click into this record. And I suggest that you always read the abstract. I can't tell you how many times I've seen a citation that I think, this is the perfect article, and I take a look at it and read the abstract and find out that it has nothing to do with my research topic. So always read the abstract. That's going to be the step in which you decide whether or not you want to seek out the full text of that article. The abstract is just the short synopsis of the article, and that can be very helpful, and it can save you time rather than spending 20 minutes trying to hunt down an article only to find out that you don't need it. By reading the abstract, you can save yourself a lot of time. So I highly suggest that when you see a citation that you want, such as number 1, you click on it and take a look at the abstract. So let's read through our abstract here. Background psychological interventions for postnatal depression can be beneficial in the short term, but their longer-term impact is unknown. Aims to evaluate the long-term effect on maternal mood of 3 psychological treatments in relation to routine primary care. And it goes on to talk a little bit about the sample and how the study was done. But right away I'm seeing some terms that I can use for my next search. Maternal mood is something that I had not thought of. Aims to evaluate the long-term effect on maternal mood. Maternal mood might be a good term to pull out of that abstract and reuse in a search. And that's what I mean when I say that searching is an iterative process. You're constantly gaining terms and ideas from what you're seeing, both in the abstract and if you wanted to go ahead and get this article. When you read the article, you'd also be learning about your topic and revising your search as you go. So right away we can pull out maternal mood, and if we scroll down, aside from the abstract, I also tell people to look at the subject terms. I mentioned before that an indexer has gone in and applied these subject terms saying this article is about these things. So these terms can be really helpful. Emotional states, intervention, mothers, postpartum depression, cognitive behavior therapy, counseling, postnatal period, psychodynamic psychotherapy. So right away, things that jump out at me: intervention, counseling, those would be very helpful in a search, and I now know that those are subject terms that I can use. So I can use those very specific subject terms in my next search, and when I use those terms, everything in PsycInfo that is tagged with that subject term, counseling or intervention or postpartum depression, I know that that's what I'm searching. I'm not just keyword searching. Anywhere in here you can see highlighted in yellow that when you keyword search, you're sort of searching everything here. But this is a much more specific search. So I'm going to go and revise my search. I'll go back to my results, click Modify Search. So let's try postpartum depression and intervention. And we know that those are subject terms. Actually, I saw in the subject terms that it's not hyphenated. So I'm going to go make that change as well. Postpartum depression as a subject heading and intervention as a subject heading. And although these are more specific results, you can see that there are quite a few results, quite a few articles that have been tagged with postpartum depression as a subject heading and intervention as a subject heading. And they're probably very good. Taking a look down, I see supportive counseling by public health nurses for women with postpartum depression. Alcohol intervention, postpartum depression effects on early interactions, parenting, safety, and practices. Say you were more interested in the counseling aspect, which in this class you probably would be. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at that article and just read a little bit of the abstract. This paper is a report of a study examining the effect of supportive counseling by public health nurses on postpartum depression. So I'd like to find more things like this in this search. So I think counseling might be a very good subject term for me to use. I think I'm going to back out and redo my search with counseling and postpartum depression. change them again to subject headings. Patient preference for counseling predicts postpartum depression. Supportive counseling, that was the article that we saw in our last search. Counseling of postnatal depression. So postnatal depression might be something I want to use. That comes up as well instead of postpartum. So you're constantly gaining information from your searches, and you're applying it forward in your next search. You're gaining information often from just the abstract itself, like we just did with the term postnatal instead of postpartum. You're gaining information by reading the abstracts and the subject terms, and you're also gaining information by reading the articles themselves. When you really find something that you think is specific and that you really want, you'll go and you'll find the article, and when you find the article and read the article, you'll have a wealth of information to apply forward. So it's not a process of get articles, read articles, write paper. The research really has to be integrated with your reading of your articles, and researching and reading and learning from your articles is all one process. So I'll back out a little bit, and I'd like to show you how you go about finding the article itself when you decide that you do want to find the full text of an article. So I'll show you how to do that. When you're trying to find an article from a citation, there are a few different things you might encounter, and I'll talk a little bit about each of those. Let's do another search for postpartum depression. And we know that that's a subject term now. And counseling. And we know that that's a subject term as well. And I'd like to just take a look down our results set and talk a little bit about how you will get to the full text of the article once you've identified that it's something you want. So looking here at number 1 in our results set, patient preference for counseling predicts postpartum depression, a prospective 1-year follow-up study in high-risk women. This might be something we would want to check out. So we'll click on it and read the abstract, and let's say we read the abstract and it's definitely something we want. You can click on this Find It at UVM button, and this Find It at UVM button will take you out of this database and into a database where there is full text. If we go back to our results set, occasionally you will see that here it'll say at the bottom what's available. Most of these, I think all of them in this search, say citation abstract. That's all that's available. Occasionally you will see PDF there, PDF full text. If you do see PDF full text, there's no need to do anything else. You can just click on the PDF full text and it'll bring up the full text of the article. We don't see that here in really any of these results, and I would encourage you to check further than the first 20 results. Another common thing that folks do when they're searching is disregard the different pages of results. But there are multiple pages for this search. So go back to our first result set and click our first result that we've identified as something we want. Again, we would read the abstract. There's no PDF here for us, so we can click Find It at UVM. And the Find It at UVM button is really your first line of defense for finding articles. What it does is pull you out of PsycInfo, and it puts you in a different database or a publisher page where there is full text. So this has taken us out of PsycInfo, out of our ProQuest PsycInfo database, and put us in a database called ScienceDirect. And ScienceDirect actually does have a PDF, and if we click here, if we click the PDF link, it'll pop the article up for us. And we can then read the full text of the article. So the Find It at UVM button really is your first line of defense for finding an article out of your results set. Again, I suggest that you read the abstract to make sure it's something you want before you go through this process. Find It at UVM doesn't always work, but it generally does work quite well. And you can see this looks different. This has pulled us out of PsycInfo and put us in a publisher page, Wiley Online, but there is the PDF link on the side. It's kind of small and hard to see, but you may have to look around a bit for the PDF full text link, but if it puts you into a different database or a publisher page, it will be there. So let me go back to my results set again, and I will say that the Find It at UVM button doesn't always work, and that may mean that, one, it's just not working correctly, or more likely, two, we don't actually own the article. And if we pop in here to result 11, counseling women with postnatal depression implications from recent qualitative research, if I click Find It at UVM, it's not going to take me to the full text. It's going to take me to this page that tells me that there is no full text available for this item. You may see something underneath that says print issues, and if there are print issues available, it will tell you where those print issues are, be it on the second floor of Bailey Howe here at the library, or maybe in one of our library research annexes. You can come to Bailey Howe if we have it in print and go up on the second floor and get it yourself. You could request it via interlibrary loan. And you can see that there's a link here for interlibrary loan request. And if you do click that, that will take you to the interlibrary loan page. And this is the page I talked about in our previous module. So I won't go over it again, but I will remind you that you will click the UVM Distance Education Student and click Go. So there's an ILL link there if we don't own it. You can double check whether or not we own an item. And that's the next part of finding an article that I'd like to talk about. So I'm going to use this result set, and I'm going to take the first citation here. Patient preference for counseling predicts postpartum depression, a prospective one-year follow-up study in high-risk women. And I'm going to pop that into a Word document. And I've just copied and pasted this into a Word document. I'd like to chop this citation up into its composite parts. And the reason I'm doing this is because the citation is really the roadmap to finding this article. Find It at UVM is a fine, as I said, first line of defense, but it's not foolproof. You need to know how to find an article from a citation. So the first section here is the title of the article, followed by the authors. There are many. After the authors is the journal title. The journal title, I really like to say that the journal title is the handle to locating the article itself. Oftentimes people will confuse journal title with article title. That's very common, and not all article titles are this sort of indicative. So we have Journal of Affective Disorders. Next comes volume and issue, and month and year. Oftentimes there will just be year there, but this is a nice citation. We have month and year, and page numbers. So I've chopped this citation up into parts. And the first thing I'm going to do is take this journal title and copy it, and go back to my browser and open up a new window in my browser and go to Journal Titles. So if I click Journal Titles and drop in the title of the journal that I'm looking for and click Go, it'll be the first thing that pops up, Journal of Affective Disorders. And what I'm trying to find here is what coverage do the UVM libraries have for this title. So I'm going to click on Journal of Affective Disorders, and that will pop up this page that tells me where we have coverage for this journal and for what years. So you can see here that we have full text online, available from 1995, and there's no end date. If there is no end date, that means that we have coverage up until the present issue. If you do see an end date there, if it said 1995 up until 2004, that would mean that we only have coverage for that time period. Similarly, in print issues, you'll see what we have in print, and you can see And you'll also see where it is in print. So you can see Dana Periodicals. That's not in the Bailey Howe Library, that's in the Dana Medical Library. We have coverage in print from Volume 10, 1986, until June 2008. I hope you can see that. It's going to be very small for you. You can also see that in the Library Research Annex, we have older issues from Volume 1 up until 1985. So we have coverage in a couple of different places for this journal, both online and in print. At this point, we need to go back to our citation and take a look at what year it's from. So we can see that it's from November 2004. Keep that in mind. And we'll work back using our citation. 2004 falls into our 1995 until the present, so we do have coverage online here in Elsevier, and that will be online full text. We do have print versions as well, because it falls within our date range here, Volume 10, 1986 to Volume 111, 2008. So for this title, we would probably want the online version, unless you had some reason for wanting the print version. We can go ahead and click on the link, which will take us to the article or the journal page. So we're in Science Direct for the Journal of Affective Disorders. And what it's showing us is the most recent issue, and that's not what we want. If you look up here, Volume 139, Issue 1, pages 1 to 102, this is for June 2012. We're looking for November 2004. So when you get to this point, you just have to keep using your citation. Let's go back and take another look. And we want to take a look over here on the left-hand side into the archive that's given to us. And we'll scroll down to Volume 83, Issue 1, and click that link. That will bring up that issue. We'll go back one more time and check our citation and see what page number it is, page 43 to page 48. So we'll take a scroll through the issue. This is the same as if you were flipping through this issue. It's just sequentially the articles in order, in page number order. So here we are. Patient preference for counseling predicts postpartum depression, a prospective one-year follow-up study in high-risk women. And there's our PDF. And I'll click on the PDF, and up it comes. And I'll wrap up by showing you the help one more time in case during this process of searching for articles you lose your way or would like some direction. You can always click on Ask a Librarian. It's here as well as up in the bar. And talk to a librarian who'd be more than happy to answer any question that you had. So we've looked at the nuts and bolts of how to search a database using PsycInfo as our example, how to limit it in a database to empirical studies by date, by subject, by abstract. We talked a bit about strategies for searching and how you need to revise a search and be persistent and think of your search process as an iterative process. You're always learning and revising your search. You're pulling out information from what you get, search terms, ideas, concepts, and reapplying those as you go forward searching. And we looked a little bit at how to locate the article both with the Find It at UVM button and doing it manually and following the roadmap of your citation. Those are the fundamental pieces for doing your search. And again, if you have follow-up questions, please do give me a shout and I'd be happy to work through the process with you. I wish you luck in your searching, and the last module that we'll be looking at next is a citation management software called Zotero. Thanks very much, and I will see you in the next module.